Welcome to the Introverted Influencer Podcast. I'm your host, Erica Van Slyke. My soul's mission on this planet is to help fellow introverts grow their online influence in a state of feminine flow and ease. While battling the woes of depression, anxiety, and even mom guilt, I've somehow managed to build a six-figure blog without the use of social media and without sacrificing my mental health. If I can do it, you can fucking too. Hey y'all. Welcome back to episode 32 of the Introverted Influencer Podcast. I am so very, very grateful that you are here. And if this is your first time joining, welcome, welcome. Let me give you a big old hug. So before I get into the meat of today's episode, I just want to let you know about a new feature that I have added down in the show notes today. If you would like to share your support for this free life and business advice that I give every week, because I currently am making no money at all from the show. And actually, it's costing me money right now between paying a hosting company to distribute these episodes to Apple and Spotify, and then for an editor that I use as well. So, no pressure at all, but if you would like to contribute anything to the show, generate some good karma, instead of charging you like a Patreon sort of fee like many podcasters do, I decided against the Patreon route, and I am just I've opened a digital tip jar. You can contribute to it if you feel called to, and I will link that tip option in the show notes. But I thought, shit, like public broadcasting operates from this model, so why the fuck not? And if you don't have anything to give monetarily, no biggie, but you can always give a written 5-star review on Apple. They are like gold to a podcaster, especially a new podcaster like me. And they only take like 2 seconds. If you don't know how to do it, just freaking Google it. That's the answer to everything in life, I swear, especially business. But if you don't know how to leave a review on Apple, Google how to leave a review on Apple. It'll show you. It's so easy. It takes 2 seconds, but it really makes all the difference to the growth of any show. That is what signals the algorithms to actually show this podcast in search results. So please help this message get out to other women who need it. And I just want to thank you for the support in advance. And I freaking love you. Thank you. So now that some housekeeping matters are out of the way, I want to get on to the message that I have for you today. So if you have been following along for any amount of time at this point, you've probably gathered that I am in a transitional phase of life right now, and it's really messy. But despite the mess and the discomfort in it, it's actually invigorating at the same time. And I'd kind of forgotten what that felt like because, as you probably know, I have it in the intro of my podcast, I have been kind of in the top of my industry it didn't take me that long. I've been blogging. It's going to be 7 years, actually, in October. And it took me about 2.5 years to really get traction in it. And I've really felt like I've mastered blogging to a great extent. Like, I'm no Beyonce of blogging, or like no, what would you say, Joanna Gaines. But I have made a pretty viable career out of it. And so blogging kind of became like second nature to me. And it was my comfort zone, blogging about interior design and DIY. And I still do that. That's how I make my living. But I would say, it was right before COVID. For 2.5 years, I have had this tug on my heart that through all the challenges I've been through in life, like with the depression, with some addiction issues, mental health, major mental health issues, and then learning how to turn a passion into a full-time living, there was just this sense of I have mastered something in life and I need to teach other women. And, the DIY thing, sure, I'm contributing and inspiring others, helping them, think outside of the box with home decor and home improvement. And that's awesome. But I really wanted to touch women who kind of were in the same position I was like 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And there was that tugging, but it was like, how the hell do I go about it? How am I supposed to teach women this? Like, blogging's my thing, home decor is my thing, interior design's my thing. That would just be kind of crazy to get into a whole new industry, right? But gosh, a year into that tugging on my heartstrings and that knowing like I need to be doing something more, it kind of started to weigh at me and drag me down a little. And the more you push it down, the heavier it seems to get. The problem was I was afraid. I didn't know what step I needed to take. So it was kind of it was like a self-induced kind of purgatory, where you need to be doing something else, but you don't know what, and you're too afraid. So you just stay in this comfort zone. And then I get in these crazy moods where it's just like one day I just get like these divine downloads. And so it was back in February of this year. And I just scribbled out in my journaling, Introverted Influencer Podcast. And it wasn't from me. It was like from an angel, from God, from source, whatever you want to call it. But I was like, that wasn't me. What the hell? Podcast? Like, I am a horrible speaker. The last time I ever gave like a public speech, it was in college, and it gave me a panic attack. And that's when actually some of my anxiety, I've always had the depression, but the anxiety came on big time in college. I got medicated, got prescribed Klonopin after this panic attack. And then that's when I got addicted to it and got ultimately put in rehab for it. So that's not an option. So I kind of had just, writing and blogging as my thing, not speaking. So why the hell am I getting this download for a podcast? That's insane. But then there was this excitement too, this tingle of excitement, like, whoa, but what if I could do that? I do have something to say. I do have a message. I have things that I've learned. And even if I'm only like, a step or two ahead of these women, I think actually it's probably a lot more inspirational than a lot of these women that are like multimillionaires, high level entrepreneurs. Sometimes that's just not even relatable. So thank God I latched onto, what if I could do it? And guys, if you go back to episode 1, the first episode, I believe the title was Done is Better Than Perfect. And straight up on the episode, I was so freaking nervous. I was shaking. And I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like taking the time to like get equipment, learn the proper way. Cause I know if I get stuck in perfectionism and in the whole like educational process of this, the learning, that's going to slow me down. And if I think about it too much, I won't do it. So it was like total impulse thing. I decide like the same day I get the download that I'm going to get on my damn phone and learn how to just record an episode from my phone. And actually I've got my phone here. I'm going to put it on do not disturb right now because I finally have a microphone that I just got last week. So anyhow, and God, I was so afraid to do it. I felt like such an idiot. I was shaking. I couldn't stand the sound of my voice. But guess what? After I recorded that first episode, I felt liberated. I felt alive again. Because there's something about when you stay in your comfort zone, and it might not even be comfortable. That's the thing. It's just the known. You might be complacent, not motivated. Maybe you have like some fatigue issues, lack of focus. And that's kind of where I was headed. I didn't feel as inspired anymore. And I wanted to go to sleep at like 3 o'clock every afternoon because I wasn't challenging myself. I wasn't growing, and I was denying my inner knowing. I was stagnant is what I was. And so I just want to give you today permission to be a hot mess. Like, go ahead and do the thing. Like, do it cringeworthy. I want you to look back years from now and be so embarrassed of yourself because guess what? That means you are evolving as a human being and you aren't staying stagnant. That means you're listening to your soul and feeding it and challenging yourself and growing. And you're not dying inside. And so I was thinking of this message because I went through another like podcast milestone for me. So my comfort zone kind of, even though this still isn't comfortable for me at all, my comfort zone, how I made it like easy for myself and sustainable to keep showing up for these episodes was like, okay, I'm super introverted and it's just going to be easier if I can do these solo casts. So if I mess up or if I make a fool of myself, I can just delete it and forget it and nobody ever has to hear it. So the next challenge was to have an actual podcast guest on. And I was so afraid to do it because I'm like, you know, if this person has to dedicate time for our interview, like I can't mess it up. And if I make a fool of myself, like it's just going to have to be what it is because I don't want to waste the other person's time. So if you listened, that was episode 30 with Gina Oldham. And she said, since you're going to be a keynote speaker at this event in November, why don't you have me on and we can kind of chat about it? And I'm like, oh God, oh, I'm so afraid to have someone on the show, but okay. What if it turns out okay? Y'all, all my biggest fears, came true with that interview back in episode 30. We had like major technical difficulties. I didn't know what I was doing on Zoom at all. And like halfway through the interview, we got timed out. I'm learning this new Mac I got for the podcast. I've always been like a PC girl. can't figure out anything on this damn computer. And it threw me off. I kind of stumbled. I didn't ask all the questions I wanted. I said a lot of ums. But guess what? Afterwards, I didn't die. And once again, it was like I stepped through a new level. It was messy. No, I wasn't happy with the way it like completely turned out, but I was proud of myself because I was challenging myself and I was giving myself permission to not be perfect. So, if I could stress anything to you, this was the process with my blog too. I look back on blog posts in the early days and I just want to delete them all. It's so bad, but I did it. And some of those ugly posts are still some of my most popular ones. And I think that just goes to show humanity is craving realness, rawness, like enough of this fake, glossy bullshit. Like traditional media is a dinosaur. Nobody wants that anymore. That's why like social media and podcasts and YouTube has gotten like, I think, way more popular. People want real. So give yourself permission to be a hot mess. Do it messy, because at least that means you've freaking done it. And there's a meme that I came across, of course, on social media. And I just wanted to share it with you because it just really hits this message home. And I wish, I don't know who to credit this to, but it just says, the quickest way to succeed is to start now and figure it out as you go. You can't learn to drive in a parked car. And that's the damn truth. And if I look back, I'm still, in terms of speaking in the podcast, I am so not where I want to be. I don't know if I'll ever be exactly where I want to be, but it feels so good. I feel alive again, guys. It's this heaviness of not being the person you need to be. That shit will weigh on you, and it can, if not checked, it can lead to some self-loathing for sure. So even though I'm uncomfortable right now, and even though this is really messy, I feel alive again. That's all I can say. And I'm so proud of myself, regardless of my ums and forgetting words. I had mom brain, and I smoked weed out of a aluminum, like homemade aluminum bowl, like every day in my teenage years. So I probably have like early onset dementia, and that's why I can't think of words, but I'm doing it. Okay. I'm showing up, and I want you to do the same. So go inward right now and ask yourself, like, where could you show up just a little more for yourself and show up a little more for your soul? And it doesn't have to be perfect. Perfection is completely unattainable. Just make peace with that now. But as you get going, you will learn to hone your craft more and more. And if fake it till you make it doesn't work for you, I know personally I'm not a great liar. I freeze up and I just can't do the lying thing. So what I've had to learn to do is just to out myself. And that's what I did in the very first episode of this podcast. I said, I suck at speaking. I get nervous. I'm nervous right now, but I'm doing it. And so out yourself as a student. I think this really takes the pressure off of showing up in a certain way that's really not authentic to where you are in your life right now. So just give yourself permission to be the student and to show up in that way if it makes you feel better. If you're one of those that like to fake it till you make it, then by all means do that. I was sort of able to do that with the blog. I kind of showed up with authority, even though I didn't really feel all that authoritative at the time, and that was okay. But that didn't demand as much of me because writing and design just kind of came naturally, where this doesn't. So I guess it kind of just depends on how much you are having to step out of your comfort zone. But even though many aspects of blogging were kind of second nature to me, I was still very hot mess in a lot of ways. It took me a long time to figure out the photography. I had tons of typos in my blog posts that my mom would always call out. And hell, I still do have typos. I'm not going to sit and obsess over everything before I get it out, because if I were to do that, if I were to sit and obsess over how everybody was going to receive this, if they were going to like it, if they were going to think I was an idiot, if they were going to notice a typo, I wouldn't have the creative freedom. And as a creative, even if you're not like a literal creative, like an artist, designer, if you are a business owner, you have to be creative. So you have to give yourself space to be wrong, to not get it perfect every time, right? And not only that, but if you're putting so much pressure on yourself and it's like every week or every time you have to film a reel for Instagram or film a video for YouTube or write a caption for any of your social media posts, if you are just obsessing over it, that's going to feel like so much more of a burden to do that you're not going to want to show up as consistently. You're making it harder for yourself to show up consistently. And to me, in the beginning, it's really all about consistency. So like I said in the first episode, done is really better than perfect. But even more important than that, please just rip the Band-Aid off, sis. Rip it off. Yes, it's going to be messy. Yes, you're probably going to cringe. But remember, if you're not, are you even freaking human? And if you don't look back at whatever your craft may be, like look back a year, look back 2 years, and if there's not something that you couldn't critique about it, what even is that? That means you're not evolving and refining your craft. So do it messy, girl. And I think I'm going to stop my rambling right now and just let you know I am rooting for you. I'm cheering you on. You can do this, and you're going to feel so much better after you get that weight off of your chest. You got this. Thank you so much for stopping by this week. I make no money from this podcast, so the best way you can pay it forward is by leaving the show a 5-star review, sharing it with a friend, or even screenshotting this episode on your phone, uploading it to your Insta story, and tagging me in it at Designing Vibes. sending you my love.